Hello my cheese friends, and welcome to another cheese making video. Part of the fun of making cheese is making it for friends and family. Sometimes people that I love will ask me to duplicate a favorite commercial cheese.
Hey, can you make this?
That's Trader Joe's Toscano cheese.
I don't know. This is a Toscano cheese soaked in wine. It looks beautiful. Let me do some research and see if I can do this. So come into my kitchen and let me show you how to make Toscano al vino, or Tuscan cheese with wine. Today's recipe is for 2.5 gallons, but I would like a 5-pound cheese, so I'm going to double the recipe. And a simple way to do that is just to run 2 pots. Take 2.5 gallons of pasteurized, non-homogenized milk and heat it slowly to 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's some behind-the-scene footage you don't always see. If you're wondering why my kitchen is always as clean as it is, well, I have a lot of help in that regard. Vince is constantly cleaning bottles and doing all the heavy lifting. I sure appreciate his help. Once the milk has reached 98 degrees Fahrenheit, you will take 1/4 cup of cultured buttermilk. And you can get this at your local grocery. Just make sure that it's cultured. And you'll pour 1/4 cup into the milk. And stir it well. Then you'll take 1/8 teaspoon of mesophilic culture and you'll sprinkle it to the top. And you'll do the same for the other one. And then you're going to take 3/8 teaspoon of thermophilic culture and you'll sprinkle it to the top. This is kind of cool. We're using both mesophilic and thermophilic. So the mesophilic will be doing its work during the ripening period that's about to come up, and the thermophilic will do its work once we crank the temperature up to about 118 a little later on. Once the culture is rehydrated, stir up and down for 1 minute. Then place the lid on the pot and let these culture ripen for 90 minutes. We'll see you in an hour and a half. Now it's time to coagulate the milk. Take 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. And to it you'll add calcium chloride. Mix it into the water and pour it into the milk. Calcium chloride is needed because the milk is pasteurized. If you're using raw milk, you won't need to add calcium chloride. Now we'll add the rennet. So you'll take 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water to which we'll add a half a teaspoon of rennet. Mix it through and pour. Do this one at a time because you have 1 minute before this rennet starts to set up. So you'll want to just take your 1 minute and stir this through completely. All right, one down. Now just do the same thing to the other batch. Now you'll cover the pots and let these rest for 45 minutes. See you in a few minutes. The first thing to do is to check for a clean break. So here's what you'll do. You'll take your curd knife and you'll insert it into the center and then just pull it aside. What you're looking for is for the whey to seep into the cut, and I see that. And you can also see that the whole curd mass turned a little bit, and that's good. It means it's ready to go. Okay, so you're going to cut this curd in 1-inch cubes. Now you'll let these curds rest for 5 minutes. Now we'll start the second curd cut. Take a whisk and begin to cut the larger pieces into smaller ones. Take your time, the curds are still very fragile. I will say, I think a longer handled whisk is probably my next purchase. Once the second curd cut is complete, you'll stir for 10 minutes without heat. I have 2 pots here, so I'm double stirring. Once the 10-minute stir is complete, you'll move to the next stir, which is a 30-minute stir. You're going to turn on the heat. The goal is to move it to 118 degrees very slowly. You want a nice even climb, not too quickly, not too slowly, so you want to watch the temperatures. On the long stir, it might not be a bad idea to enlist a friend. All right, that cook is done. So at the end of the 30 minutes, once you've reached 118 degrees, you'll turn off the stove. And now you have a decision to make. How long would you like to wait to eat this cheese? Because if you'd like to taste it in as early as 3 weeks, then you'll want to do this next step at a 12 to 15 minute stir. If you can wait between 9 and 12 months, you'll want to take this to about 20 to 25 minutes for this stir. It's up to you. For me, I don't want to wait, so I'm only going to do a 15-minute stir. My 15-minute stir is complete, and now we're going to let the curds sink to the bottom of the pan for 10 minutes. This is a great opportunity to get your sink ready and your press for the next step. You can reserve some of the whey for other uses. Get every curd, every little bit is cheese. At this stage, work very quickly. You want the curds to stay very warm. You'll move them into a cheesecloth lined mold. You'll take the cheesecloth and just wrap it up. Place the follower on top. Now you'll take an 8-pound weight, and this press will be for 1 hour at 8 pounds.
Draping a towel over the cheese is a great way to help maintain the heat, especially during the first press.
After the hour has elapsed, you can remove the cheese from the press. And at this point, if you can manage it, go ahead and take off the cheesecloth. And I'll tell you why. This is a thermophilic cheese, and if you let it go the next pressing, here's what could happen. It's easy for thermophilic cheese to absorb the cheesecloth into it, and it makes it really difficult to take it off later. That's experience talking. So if you can remove it, go ahead and do that. If you feel like you can't remove it, press it another hour and then try to remove it. You just want to make sure that the disc is completely pressed so it doesn't fall apart. And there we go. Not too bad at all. Okay, back into the molds. There we go. Looks good. Follower goes back on. And the next press is at 25 pounds for 6 hours. The next step requires the cheese to rest without any weight at a temperature between 90 degrees and 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So you'll need to figure out what works best for you in your environment and the temperature of your home. These are all factors and considerations. For me, what I plan to do is I plan to use the oven, but without any heat. I'm just going to turn on the oven light, and the heat of the bulb should be able to keep the temperature right where I need it. After the overnight rest, we'll move the cheese
To a 25% brine solution.
for 6 hours. I created this brine solution by boiling a gallon of water with 32 ounces of non-iodized salt. I let it cool to room temperature and then placed it in the brining container. I'm now going to add a teaspoon of calcium chloride. This will help keep the calcium from leaching out of the cheese. Then place the cheese in the brine solution. It should float. Because it's floating, you have a choice. You can place something on the cheese so it will submerge, or what you can do is you can sprinkle some salt on the top. And then after the brining stage, dry it on a rack in the open air for 1 to 2 days, or until it is dry to the touch. To help it dry evenly, be sure to flip it every 12 hours. The cheese has been drying for 2 days, and now it's time to soak it in wine. But before I do that, I wanted to show something to you. You'll notice this cheese has some cracks in it. Can you see that? And that can happen. You see, cheese making doesn't always go perfectly. And I'll tell you where I think I went wrong. When I was moving the curds into the press, I could tell that the curds weren't quite as warm as I would have liked. And I think that could contribute to the curds not wanting to come together completely. If I wanted to wax this cheese afterwards, I would be more concerned. But since I'm vacuum sealing, I'm really not worried at all, because vacuum sealing, to be honest, covers a multitude of errors. And I really think that the vacuum seal will help the cheese come together. So I'm just not going to worry about it. All right, on to the wine stage. You'll want to select a wine that has a good staining quality. So you could use a Syrah or Shiraz, of course, Zinfandel, maybe Pinot Noir. Anything that, to be honest, stains your teeth will stain this cheese, and that's what we're after. Take a cookie sheet and place a large Ziploc bag. In this case, I'm using a 2-gallon Ziploc because the cheese is 5 pounds. If you did this regular recipe with just 2.5 gallons, then you could probably get away with a 1-gallon bag. And then what you'll do is you'll take the cheese and place it in the bag. And then take half a bottle of wine and pour it into the bag. Oh. And then close it tightly. Get as much of the air out of it as possible. And then you can use the edge of the cookie sheet, help the wine cover most of the cheese. I'm going to place this in the cheese cave, and I'm going to flip it every 6 hours for the next 3 days in my attempt to try and get it a nice wine-soaked color. Reserve the second half of the wine because you're going to need it again for the second step. I'll see you in 3 days. The cheese has been soaking in the wine for 3 days, and it's time to remove it from the cave. I'm excited about this. I can't wait to see how it looks. So you'll remove it from the wine after 3 days. And make sure that you have very clean hands. Oh my goodness. Look at that gorgeous color. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's coming along really well. Now you're going to take some paper towels and wipe it off. Your goal is just to get the excess wine off the rind. Okay, that looks great. Now we're going to take it over to the drying rack and dry it for 1 to 2 days, just enough to create another rind. And then to let you know, I plan to repeat the process because I saved the other half of the wine. So get a fresh bag, put this cheese back into it again, pour the wine on, and back into the cave for another 3 days. Flip, flip, flip every time you walk by it. So that's the process. Let's get it on the drying rack. And then after 6 days total of soaking it in the wine, I'm going to go ahead and back seal it. And you'll notice I cut the cheese in half. Kind of sad, I know, but it's the only way it'll fit in the vacuum seal bags. And here's the second half. And then into the cave they go. And you'll want to age this at 53, 54 degrees. See you in a few weeks for the taste test. I am so excited about this taste test. This cheese is mine, and it's right at about 8 weeks old. And this is the commercial cheese that Vince asked me to duplicate. So I'm going to taste my cheese first, and then I'll taste this one and see if I can do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison. All right, here we go. Wow. The first thing that I'm struck by is the color. This is amazing, and it answers a question that I had. I wasn't sure if the 3-day wine soak with the rest and then a second 3-day wine soak with the rest was the right thing to do, but I now know it is, and this is why. It really deepens the rind color. It's perfect. It is just beautiful. And the second thing that I'm noticing right away is this incredible berry smell. It smells a little bit like wine, but a lot more like raspberries or blackberries, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to cut it in half. The paste is firm, a little bit dense. It looks good. Actually, it looks great. A few mechanical holes, but pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. It smells a little nutty, but I will admit that the fruit is kind of overpowering it. So let's taste this. The anticipation is killing me. Oh my gosh. I think this is the best cheese I've ever made. This is awesome. All right. The texture is smooth. Creamy, very creamy. Tastes like another bite, that's what it tastes like. I am so excited. That's awesome. It is a little nutty, but there is just a little bit of a tang at the end, which I like. I can taste the wine, but not in the center of the cheese. I taste it on the edges. So the wine is not overpowering at all. And if you're not really into wine or not a wine drinker, I would give this a try anyway, because what the wine soak does to the flavor profile is pretty incredible. I know right away, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and make another one of these, because this isn't going to last very long at all. This is fantastic. All right, so now let's taste the commercial cheese. I also smell the wine, but maybe not as pronounced as this one. All right, here we go. Wow. It's fantastic. Is mine the same as this? No. But is mine a great cheese, and is this a great cheese? Yes. Am I close? Yeah, I think I'm close. It's good. Let me try the rind. Oh man. So here's what I think is the difference. I'm sure that this one is aged longer. The texture is a little more crumbly, but it has that same nutty beginning and then moves to a slight tang in the aftertaste. That is really good. But here's what this cheese has that this cheese doesn't have. This one has some, what I think are tyrosine crystals on the inside. I'm pretty sure. They're delicious. So, every once in a while to get that kind of a crunch inside the cheese, well, these are crystals and they are fantastic. They're a mark of an aged cheese. Often an Italian cheese will have this, especially if it's been aged a long time. So based on the fact that the flesh of this cheese is a little firmer and I'm beginning to taste or identify those tyrosine crystals, this cheese is aged longer. So it's this cheese but more. And that already tells me that the next cheese I'm going to make, during the stir stage, I'm going to stir longer and I'm going to age this one for probably up to a year, because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to end up with something close to that. And that would be an amazing thing. Making a cheese that is supposed to be a replica of a commercial cheese is always a challenge, and I'll tell you why. Because the commercial cheese is made in its own environment with its own cultures and its own processes, and your home cheese is made in its own environment with its own cultures and its own processes. So I'm not sure it's entirely possible to get an exact duplicate, but if you're looking for a Toscano cheese that is beautifully soaked, beautifully developed, the flavor is nutty and creamy, but also a little tangy with a nice smooth texture, this cheese is for you. And it's a lot of fun to try to duplicate something you may have seen in a store. Are you interested in cheese making? Check out another list. See what you can find and create in your own kitchen. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate your support. Happy cheese making. We'll see you in the next episode. I need more. Oh my goodness. I kind of can't believe I did it.